The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and despair. A sterile cage where my heartbeats were counted like coins in a beggar's cup. I lay there, 28 years old, my body a battlefield of failing organs, while the man I'd loved for a decade stood at the window, his back to me. Ethan's silhouette against the San Francisco skyline was as beautiful and unreachable as ever. I'd always known loving him would cost me something, maybe everything, but I never imagined it would end like this. 10 years ago, in a dive bar in Oakland, I saw him across a haze of cigarette smoke, his hazel eyes catching mine like a spark in dry grass. He was a storm wrapped in human skin, all sharp edges and quiet intensity, and I was a moth drawn to his flame. That night, we talked until dawn, our words weaving a fragile bridge between two broken worlds, mine, a foster kid clawing for purpose, and his, a gilded cage of old money and older secrets. We were inseparable after that. Ethan, heir to the Caldwell dynasty, carried the weight of a family cursed with a rare blood disorder, a ticking clock that claimed his mother and haunted his every step. Caleb, was his anchor, the one who held him through nights of fear, who kissed away the shadows of his lineage. We built a life in a cramped apartment by the bay, where the fog rolled in like our dreams, thick, fleeting, and impossible to hold. I worked as a paramedic, saving strangers while Ethan wrestled with his family's legacy, a pharmaceutical empire built on promises of cures they could never deliver. But love, even the kind that burns through your soul, can't stop time. My health began to falter 2 years ago. Fevers, fatigue, a body betraying me with no explanation. Doctors called it idiopathic, a fancy word for we don't know why you're dying. Ethan was there, always, his hand in mine during endless tests, his voice promising we'd find a way. I believed him because I had to, because loving him was the only thing that made sense. Until it didn't. 3 months ago, he changed. His touches grew hesitant, his eyes distant. He'd disappear for hours, claiming meetings with his family's researchers. But he'd return with secrets clinging to him like damp fog. I'd catch him staring at me, not with love, but with something colder, calculation. Maybe. Or guilt. I told myself it was stress, that his family's pressure was breaking him. The Caldwells were ruthless, their empire built on blood, literal and figurative. They'd never approved of me, the nobody who dared love their golden son. But I trusted Ethan. I trusted us. Last week, in this very hospital bed, I overheard him on the phone. His voice was low, urgent, speaking words that carved themselves into my heart. If we wait too long, it'll be too late. The trials are ready. We just need the source. The source. The word echoed in my skull, sharp and wrong. I didn't understand then, but it planted a seed of dread. Now, as I watched him at the window, my chest tight with more than just illness, I whispered, "Ethan, what aren't you telling me?" My voice was weak, but it cut through the silence like a blade. He turned, his face a mask of anguish. "Caleb." He stopped, his jaw tight, as if the truth was a weight he couldn't lift. "I love you. You know that. Then why do you look like you're burying me already?" I forced a smile, but it cracked under the strain. He crossed the room in 2 strides, kneeling beside my bed, his hands gripping mine. "I'm trying to save you. I've always been trying to save you." His voice broke, and for a moment, I saw the boy from that bar, the one who'd kissed me under a streetlight and promised forever. But forever was a lie. The next day, he was gone. No note. No explanation, just an empty chair where he'd sat through my sleepless nights. The nurses wouldn't meet my eyes, their pity louder than words. I was alone, my body failing faster, my heart breaking under the weight of his absence. Days blurred into a haze of pain and questions. Why had he left? What was he hiding? I clung to memories' laugh, the way he'd trace constellations on my skin, the nights we'd planned a future that felt so close. But the truth was slipping through my fingers, and with it, my life. On the 5th day, a stranger came. She was older, her face sharp like Ethan's, her eyes carrying the same Caldwell coldness. "You're Caleb," she said. Not a question. "I'm Eleanor, Ethan's aunt. We need to talk." Her words were a scalpel, precise and cutting. She spoke of the Caldwell curse, a genetic flaw that killed their line slowly, painfully. Their researchers had found a cure. She cited a rare protein in the blood of certain individuals. A 1 in a million match. My blood. My dying blood. "You're the key," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "Your condition, it's not random. It's linked to the protein. The sicker you get, the stronger it becomes." I stared, my mind reeling. "You're saying my illness is your cure?" She nodded, unapologetic. "We've known for months." Ethan didn't want to believe it. He fought us. But he's a Caldwell. Duty comes first. The room spun. Ethan knew. He'd known my death was their salvation, and he'd let me waste away while they prepared to harvest what was left of me. The betrayal was a knife, twisting deeper with every breath. "Where is he?" I demanded, my voice raw. "He's making arrangements," she said. "The procedure is delicate. We need you. Stable." Stable. A euphemism for not yet dead. I laughed, a bitter sound that burned my throat. 10 years of love, of sacrifice, and I was reduced to a resource. A cure for the family that despised me. That night, alone in the dark, I made a choice. I wouldn't be their pawn. If my blood was their salvation, they'd have to take it from a corpse. I pulled the 4 from my arm, the sting a small rebellion. I didn't have long hours. Maybe, but I'd spend them on my terms. I slipped out of the hospital, my body screaming with every step. The San Francisco streets were alive with lights and noise, a cruel contrast to the quiet inside me. I headed for the cliffs, the place where Ethan and I had first said "I love you." If I was going to die, it would be there, with the ocean as my witness. The wind was fierce, carrying the salt of the sea and the weight of my choices. I stood at the edge, my heart a fragile thing, still beating for him despite everything. I hated him. I loved him. And I was running out of time to reconcile the two. The cliff's edge was a razor line between life and oblivion, the Pacific roaring below like it could swallow my pain whole. I stood there, shivering in a hospital gown, my bare feet cut by the rocky ground. But the ache in my chest was sharper. Ethan's betrayal was a wound that bled worse than any illness. And yet, I couldn't stop picturing his face, those hazel eyes, the way they'd soften only for me. I'd met him at 20, a kid with nothing but a stubborn heart and a knack for saving people. He was 22, a prince in a world I'd never belonged to. But he'd chosen me. We'd spent 10 years carving out a space where we could be us-twelve men defying a world that didn't always understand. We'd danced in dive bars, kissed under the Golden Gate Bridge, fought and made up in the glow of dawn. He'd promised me forever, and I believed him because love makes fools of us all. Now, as I stared at the waves, I wondered if any of it had been real. Had he loved me? Or was I just a means to an end? The Caldwells had known about my blood for months. Eleanor said. Months of tests. Of Ethan holding my hand while they planned to let me die. The thought was a poison, seeping into every memory, tainting the nights we'd spent dreaming of a cure for me. For him. For us. A rustle behind me snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned, half expecting a nurse or a security guard. But it was him. Ethan, standing 10 feet away, his coat flapping in the wind, his face pale and haunted. Caleb, he said, his voice breaking on my name. What are you doing? What does it look like? I spat, my voice hoarse but steady. I'm done being your family's science experiment. He flinched, taking a step closer, his hands raised like he was approaching a wounded animal. Please, just listen. I didn't know, not at first. They kept it from me until last month. I swear, I tried to find another way. Another way. I laughed, the sound raw and ugly. You let me lie in that bed, thinking you loved me, while they planned to carve me up. You knew. Ethan. I was trying to save you. He shouted, his voice cracking like the cliffs beneath us. I thought if I could delay them, find another source god. Caleb, I didn't want this. I love you. I've always loved you. His words were a blade, cutting through my resolve. I wanted to believe him, to fall into his arms and pretend the last week hadn't happened. But the truth was heavier than my heart. You left me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You left me to die alone. He closed the distance between us, his hands gripping my shoulders, his eyes wild with desperation. I left to fight them. I told them I wouldn't let them touch you. I've been working with the researchers, trying to synthesize the protein, to find a way to save you and them. But they're too far gone. Caleb, they don't care about you. They only care about the cure. His touch was warm, familiar, and it broke something in me. Tears burned my eyes, and I hated myself for them. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice trembling. Why didn't you trust me? Because I was scared, he admitted, his forehead pressing against mine. I was scared of losing you, of what it would do to you, knowing your death was their salvation. I thought I could fix it. I pulled away, my body weak, but my resolve hardening. You don't get to fix this, Ethan. Not now. Not when I'm out of time. He grabbed my hand, his grip desperate. You're not out of time. I found something to trial. A new treatment. It's risky, but it could stabilize you long enough for us to figure this out. Together. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a fragile thing, and mine was in pieces. Why should I believe you? I asked, the wind stealing my words. Because I'm here, he said, his voice fierce. Because I'd rather die with you than live without you. For a moment, we stood there, two broken souls on the edge of the world. The ocean roared, the wind howled, and my heart beat a rhythm that was running out of notes. I didn't know if I could forgive him, but I knew I couldn't let go. Not yet. Okay, I whispered, my voice lost in the wind. But if you're lying, Ethan, I'll haunt you. He laughed, a broken, beautiful sound, and pulled me into his arms. For the first time in days, I felt alive, even if it was only for a moment. We returned to the city. To his safe house, Ethan had arranged a small apartment tucked away in the Mission District, far from his family's reach. He explained the trial, an experimental drug that could slow my condition, maybe even reverse it. It was a long shot, but it was hope. And hope was something I'd thought I'd lost. The next few days were a blur of injections and monitors. Ethan by my side, his hands steady even when his eyes weren't. He told me about his fight with his family, how he'd stolen their research, how he'd burned bridges to protect me. I wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered like a shadow. Every needle in my arm felt like a question. Is this love? Or is this guilt? One night, as we lay together in the dim light of the safe house, he traced the scars on my wrist from the IVs. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice thick with tears. For everything. I should have told you. I should have fought harder. I turned to him, my heart caught between love and pain. Just don't leave me again, I said. That's all I ask. He kissed me, soft and desperate. And for a moment, the world was just us. But the moment didn't last. The next morning, the safe house door burst open, and Eleanor stood there, flanked by men in black suits, their faces as cold as her eyes. You thought you could run, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. You're too valuable. Caleb. And Ethan, you're too weak. They dragged us apart, and as I screamed his name, I saw the truth in his eyes. He'd tried to save me. But love wasn't enough. Not against the Caldwells. Not against fate. The Caldwell estate loomed like a fortress, its marble halls cold and unyielding, a stark contrast to the warmth of Ethan's touch. They brought us here, to a sprawling mansion north of San Francisco, where the air smelled of money and secrets. I was strapped to a gurney in a sterile lab, my body too weak to fight, while Ethan was somewhere else locked away. He'd whispered, before they tore us apart. His last words to me were a plea. Hold on. Caleb. I'll find you. The lab was a nightmare of white walls and sharp tools, presided over by Eleanor and a team of scientists who looked at me like I was a specimen, not a man. They spoke in clipped tones about extraction, about how my blood-me life could save their dying lineage. I was their miracle, their cure, and they didn't care if it killed me. You don't understand, I rasped, my voice barely audible. I'm not just a cure. I'm a person. I loved him. Eleanor's lips curled. Not quite a smile. Love is a luxury, Caleb. Survival is a necessity. Ethan will learn that. In time. Her words were a blade, but they didn't cut as deep as the truth Ethan had known. And he'd let this happen. Maybe not at first. Maybe not willingly. But he'd known. And yet, as the machines hummed around me, drawing my blood drop by drop, I couldn't hate him. I saw his face in every memory, his smile, his tears, the way he'd held me like I was his world. 10 years of love didn't vanish, even under betrayal. Hours passed, or maybe Daisy couldn't tell. My body was a shell, my mind a haze of pain and longing. But then, Chaos. Alarms blared. Glass shattered. And Ethan burst into the lab. His face bloodied but fierce. He'd fought his way in. A stolen gun in his hand. His eyes wild with a fire I hadn't seen since our first night together. Caleb. He shouted, shoving a scientist aside. He tore at the straps holding me, his hands shaking but sure. I'm getting you out of here. I wanted to speak. To ask why. To demand answers. But my voice was gone. He lifted me, his arms strong despite the chaos, and carried me through the labyrinth of the estate. Gunshots echoed behind us, and I realized he wasn't just fighting his family, was fighting for me. For us. For a chance at redemption. We made it to a car. The night air sharp against my skin. Ethan drove, his knuckles white on the wheel, his eyes darting to me every few seconds. I'm so sorry, he kept saying, like a prayer. I thought I could protect you. I thought I could outsmart them. I reached for his hand, my fingers weak but desperate. Just drive, I whispered. Don't let them win. We ended up at the cliffs again, the same place where I'd stood ready to end it all. The ocean was calmer now, the stars bright above us. Ethan helped me sit, his arms around me, his breath warm against my cheek. I found a way, he said, his voice urgent. The trial, it's working. Your levels are stabilizing. We just need time. Time, I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping me. We've never had enough of that. He cupped my face, his eyes searching mine. I love you, Caleb. I've loved you every second of these 10 years. And I'll love you for whatever comes next. I'm not letting you go. I wanted to believe him, but my body was a traitor, slipping away even as he held me. The stars blurred, my breath shallow, and I knew this was the end. But it wasn't the end I'd feared. It was quiet, almost peaceful, with Ethan's arms around me and the ocean singing our story. I forgive you, I whispered, my voice fading. I always will. He sobbed, his tears falling on my face, and I felt his love, fierce and unbroken, even as my heart slowed. I didn't know if the trial would save me, if my blood would save his family, or if we'd just be a tragedy written in the stars. But in that moment, I was his, and he was mine, and that was enough. I died there, on the cliffs, with Ethan's heartbeat against mine. But the story didn't end. Weeks later, Ethan stood before a courtroom, exposing the Caldwell empire, their greed, their experiments, their willingness to sacrifice me for their cure. My blood, it turned out, wasn't just their salvation. It was their undoing. The protein they'd harvested led to a breakthrough, not just for their family, but for thousands with the same disease. Ethan made sure it was free, a gift to the world, in my name. He never forgave himself, but he lived for me. He built a life of purpose, fighting for those the world forgot, carrying my love in his heart. And somewhere, in the space between stars and sea, I watched him, my heart full, knowing our love had changed the world even if it couldn't save us.